That one's not stable, so it's here in the marble. Can I back through? No, I think it's just like permanently stuck now. I don't know if I can back out. It's just a matter of trying to get down as far down this mountain as possible before it gets too dark.
Last time, on Across the Mojave, I left Blackwater Spring with enough water for 3 days. Running behind schedule, I had used up 2 days crossing the east branch of the Panamint Mountains and had just 1 more day of water left to journey to Cottonwood Spring as I struggled across the bouldered Emigrant Wash Valley by flashlight.
We'll see how far I stumble through this stuff.
Well, it's a little blustery and you guys can't see anything because it's still dark, although the sky is just starting to lighten over there below Venus. You probably can't see any of that, but I decided I really want to get to the spring before dark, so I have time for my spring chores like pumping water and doing my laundry. So I got up at 4. I've got on the road. I didn't even eat breakfast. It's a little cold and windy for breakfast, so I'll stop for breakfast in a more sheltered spot, or maybe when the sun rises. I did eat a couple of crackers. But yeah, I'm just gonna start off by a flashlight. Dawn should come soon enough. Oh, I don't know if I ever updated, but yeah, I ended up camping. I basically ended up hiking, you know, maybe a mile past the road. And that's as far. So I still have a couple miles still to go to get to the mountain on the other side of this alluvium, but at least have fresh feet. Well, I warmed up to eat the rest of my breakfast, and we have dawn coming up over here. I'm still working my way across this very bouldery alluvial fan, which is kind of slow, but I'm heading, I think, for the end of that low gray hill in front of the White Mountain there. Some of this part of this fan here, these boulders are almost big enough that it'd be better to do a boulder dash. But I'm not really confident about doing that in the dark. But now I think it's getting light enough. That shouldn't be a problem anymore if I get to another super bouldery stretch. Ah, okay, these are not good boulders for boulder dashing because some of them are loose. I think I just had bad luck. Usually these alluvium boulders in an old alluvial fan like this are usually pretty solid. Well, we're starting to get some early morning sunlight up on the northern part of the Cottonwood Mountains there. Yeah, today shouldn't be too bad, even with the couple miles of catch-up still to do across this alluvial fan. I think I only have 9 miles total and a kilometer of elevation gain climbing over that mountain, but I think because my pack is at a relative low weight right now, I think I'm going to be okay. Starting to enter a nightmarish section of alluvial fan with deep canyons. This is not going to help my speed catching up today. The problem is I can see there's another one just on the other side of this hill, so it's going to be like this. I'm going to be going like a quarter of a mile an hour. I mean, my actual speed might be greater than that, but my speed in the correct direction I'm trying to go is not going to be much more than that. I can climb up right there. To me, these things are reasonably stable in here. Not actually stable, that's okay. Sun hasn't even gotten here and I'm already tired. Here I'm crossing Lemoyne Canyon Road. As you can see, there's some cars parked on up there, maybe a quarter mile. Still continuing over towards the mountains over here. I just need to follow this canyon up into the mountains for a few miles and then head up over the mountains. Okay, we're approaching this, finally the bedrock of the mountain now. Now, I seem to recall from looking at the satellite images that the canyon looked like it might be a little nasty running through this limestone gorge. So hopefully there aren't any waterfalls I can't climb over. Thought it looked like there might be a little chute there. Well, let's see how difficult it is. Doesn't look too bad. Okay, let's see if we can do this one hand. That way I don't have to get up the kind of slippery, but
if I slide down, I slide down. It's not like I'm gonna fall off a ledge. It's just gonna be like going down a children's slide backwards. Okay, got up that part. Okay, that wasn't so bad. If they're all like that, we're in business. There's veins of blue calcite here in these marbles. I wonder if we're close to the contact between the marbles and the most of these mountains are made of a Jurassic granite. And when you have granites that intrude into marble, you can get interesting minerals. And some plain ordinary minerals like calcite will just grow bigger and prettier. Oh yeah, see, we just crossed the contact because this is now a plutonic rock. I don't know, broadly speaking, granite is probably more like a quartz monzodiorite or something like that. But I'll pull up my notes, but I believe these are Jurassic in age, from 180 to 156 million years old. Anyway, we're going to be walking through these rocks all day. You're entering a section of the canyon where we have some old alluvial fan sediments, it looks like, with these angular boulders in it. On top of that is a basalt. If I had to guess, these basalts are probably about 5 million years old, because that's a pretty common age for basalts in the area. We'll be seeing a lot of those the next couple days. And actually right there, that contact is a classic example of a baked contact. You can see how close to where the basalt up on the top of that cliff is on top of the alluvium, it's sort of reddish. And so that's very common when you put a hot lava on top of a rock. It bakes the rock, and it often will sort of cause the iron in the rocks to rust and turn that reddish color. So if you're ever not sure if you know, these rocks were overturned, for example, and the basalt was there first and the sediments were on top and then everything got flipped, well, that couldn't be the case in this case because of the baked contact there. It's gotten hot quickly today. Started out too cold to eat breakfast, and now it's too hot to do more than stagger. Well, I believe it has come time to leave the sweltering canyon and start heading up the ridge. Yeah, so this climb I'm starting here is going to be about 2,000 feet or 600 meters up. So it's actually similar to yesterday's climb in that regard. And also similar to the top altitude is a little over 5,000 feet or 1,500 meters. And it's slightly lower than the pass I went over yesterday, but not by much. Like 10 meters or something. Another fun fact, I think approximately right now I've completed about 17.8 kilometers, or that's roughly 11 miles of cumulative elevation gain. The equivalent of having climbed twice. But I'm not done climbing yet. Almost now up to the top of this false summit that we can see from the bottom. Feeling quite confident, because I've looked at the map, this is not the real top. In fact, I can see a higher peak over there already. So that far ridge there, I think, is the actual top. Okay, we're finally coming up to the rocky cap on top of this ridge, which appears to be basalt, based off of the pieces coming down. Here from a distance, it's almost the same color, it's the same sort of gray color. You can see the same layers of basalt on top of the other ridges over there. It's probably the same basalt as down there, just these mountains have been uplifted more, is my guess. Again, if I had to guess, these are probably 5 million year old basalts. There are a whole bunch of those, camping a lot of plateaus in this area, generally speaking. Up close, you can see it's got little bubbles in it. So we can tell this is a lava. These is dark, a reasonable guess is basalt. That and basalts are really common in this area. Looking at this basalt cliff here more closely, pretty sure this is actually just a dike, because it just cuts off this edge of the mountain here, and at the top of the mountain is granite. And so, although the plateaus over there are lava or basalt lava flows, in order to have a lava flow, you need to have the lava come up from the underground, usually the mantle somewhere. And usually for a relatively thin lava like basalt, it'll come up in dikes. So when a long thin dike like this, you know, maybe this is got like 5 meters thick of basalt here, or maybe a little thicker. When something like this erupts, it erupts all along a row basically and produces something called a fissure eruption. These are pretty common in Iceland, and they've happened in Hawaii too from time to time. Okay, so anyway, just took a little lunch break there. Feeling refreshed, at least somewhat refreshed. Just going to continue up over the top of the mountain over there. So just come over to this next little knoll from where I ate lunch. In this case, the basalt is a lava flow that's sitting on top of the granite. You can tell because down here below, there are actually rounded granite cobbles. So this was and you can see some of this stuff is soil carbon or caliche. So there was a soil developed here, a very poor soil, and then the basalt flowed over that. And see on the bottom of the basalt, there's a little thin layer of breccia down there. It's very common when basalt flows, especially if it's an flow. The top sort of breaks up into a little bit of rubble. And when it flows, that rubble falls off the front and makes a little breccia layer that goes in front of the flow. So yeah, here's an even better example where you can clearly see here's the sort of a soil breccia with granite clast in it. So that was the soil developing on top of the granite. Then here's the basalt, and there's a little bit of a brecciated basalt in the bottom, which would be typical for an flow, to have a little bit of breccia in the top and bottom of the flow. Incidentally, there's also a little bit of snow here. So that contact there, I was just talking about, it's called an unconformity. So or technically a nonconformity, but it represents a very long period of time between when the loosely speaking granite, really gabbro, was intruded, you know, maybe 160 million years ago or so. And then it sat there eroding until just maybe 5 million years ago, when finally the basalt was erupted on top of it. And so there's another unconformity at the base of that next hill, I'm pretty sure, where the top is going to be basalt, and then below that cliff is going to be more granite. You can see that same unconformity wrap all the way along the tops of these mountains. And it just clips off the very top of this hill. The ridge top here is already getting kind of rocky, so I may just start contouring around. My plan is to go down to the stream bottom here. This is sort of place where an animal pass would be really nice. I see maybe a slight hint of one up ahead, but it doesn't look like an obvious one. Slippery slope. This slope, unfortunately, it might be too steep to preserve animal paths for long. All the gravel just washes down and covers them over. And the animals may be smart enough to find a better route than this, unlike me, apparently. Whew. So this kind of walking is hard work. You slide downhill half a step with every step forwards. Okay, now we emerge in a nice valley above the boulder pile. Now I just need to follow this valley to its end and basically go over the crest of the range there. It's definitely starting to look a little more like the Great Basin, a little bit less like the Mojave as we go further north here. Geologically speaking, we're basically already in the Great Basin because we're in an area that's actively extending. Whereas the Mojave south of the Garlock Fault isn't really doing very much of active mountain uplift. And so as a consequence, the mountains here are much taller. So this last week of my trip is extra intense. Okay, so I'm finally coming up to the top here. Let's see what we can see. Oh, there are the Sierras in the distance. I can see the snow poking out. And there below us is Cottonwood Canyon. Unless my sense of perspective is terribly skewed, I think Cottonwood Spring is down. You can see where that canyon is. There's sort of a narrow band of trees and bushes in the bottom. The top of that band is where Cottonwood Spring should be. So Not so far, not as close as it looks, because it's actually a long way down. But I just need to go down the mountain, then about 2 miles up the stream to get there. Total distance is probably 3 or 4 miles, so that's not too bad, given that most of it's downhill. And there may be a trail along it. Again, it's actually a way that some people go backpacking. People who do desert backpacking come here. So yeah, there's the Sierras, and I guess the range in front of those would be Malpais Mesa. Okay, so now all I need to do is walk down this very steep ridge. Well, so far so good. It looks, from what I can see, this ridge is going to be really easy to go down. Would have been a little bit more of a pain to come up, because it's the sort of thing where you slide a little bit of a step every time, but this stuff is great for downhill. And actually the sides of the hills where it's slipperiest are the best. Coming down this mountain, it's been really easy still. If you remember back when I was in the Granite Mountains and I got to the top and I was like, well, the only way I'm going to get down this before light is my dream was that if it was a nice smooth granite slope down the whole way, or a nice smooth gravel slope down the whole way. This is the kind of slope I was dreaming about. I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose almost 2,000 feet of elevation down this slope in like 20 minutes without taxing my knees or ankles. Feet still hurt a little bit, but I just think there's no helping that at this point. Okay, now all I need to do is hike up this canyon for almost 2 miles. It's hot though, now that I'm down the canyon. Funny, I've been in the trackless wilderness for so long, now I see footprints everywhere. I'm like, wow, footprints. People come here. Did I mention that when I crossed Highway 190 last night, that would have been the first time my feet touched pavement since I left Kelbaker Road down by I-40, what was then 12 days ago. I did walk under I-15, but my feet didn't touch pavement. Footprints have now coalesced into a proper trail. It may just be this trail was here all along, but it was on the right side of the canyon and I'd been walking up the left side because that's where I came in from. Not sure. This is the first active use human trail I've actually been on the entire trip since I left the border, where it's a trail marked primarily by human feet and not primarily by burro hooves. There's moss on the rocks, and I actually see some pools of water up there. So if there's water all the way down here, I'm sure there's water up at the main part of the spring. Wow, look at all that water. That really is a creek. I'm really tempted to stop and bathe right now while it's still warm. I don't see anyone coming. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna stop and take a quick bath. Water's definitely cold. It's actually not that cold. It's not as cold as I expect. I think I'm far enough downstream now. Here it's warmed up quite a bit. Especially on a warm day like today. Well, that was extremely refreshing. Nice to see a real tree. I mean, junipers, I don't know. Some of those junipers up in the Avawats probably counted, but they weren't nice, you know, big, like, shade trees like this. Yeah, they'd be slightly more tree-like if it were summer and they had leaves, but what can you do? I mean, this is basically a forest here. I mean, even by non-desert standards, you could almost call that a forest. A pretty lizard. Blue and yellow spots. It gets really steep for a bit. I'm going to see if I can make it over to the left side trail through this wild grape here, because I think that's what this is. Dormant, of course, again because of the winter. Getting to the vines up here, I guess, will be a little annoying with the pack, but okay, sorry, maybe a little is not the right adjective. Nearly impossible. This vine just like grab onto the pack. If I back through, no, I think it just like permanently stuck now. I don't know if I can back out even. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, I got off from that. Okay. Slow progress through this canyon. I guess maybe I should have stayed on the other side. Okay, well, let's see if this last little micro pass leads. Well, it looks like it's getting close at least. Actually, I do vaguely recall there being a low hill at the mouth, so that actually might be basically the end. I'm not 100% sure though. So I have to keep going. The Cottonwoods are a little magical the way we're backlit right now. Yeah, there's lots of water here. Once again, I have to actually be careful crossing. Oof. Oops. Trail makes a charming entrance back into the forest here. Oof. I think hands and knees is gonna have to be. Yeah. Let's stand up. I'll do that. Okay. Huh. Well, here we're back to the stream. Let's see if we can get back up to the other side. The spring should be pretty close to here where it actually arrives from. Yeah. That might be as close as you can get to the spring back there. You're not hearing any water ahead. That probably is basically the spring. Let's see if there's a nice campsite back here. So it's short walking distance, but not clamping right on top of it. This is the spot. Great, and there's probably a shortcut down the spring right over here. Perfect. Sun hasn't even set yet. Gives me time to wash my clothes. I can actually hear voices, so I think there are other people camped here. I think they're out somewhere in the trees out that way. Can't see them, but... Good morning. You guys can see the dawn is approaching just behind me. I went ahead and already left camp just a few minutes ago. Since I had neighbors, I didn't want to bother them with my monologue. Also, I just wanted to start to get walking because it's kind of cold. Last night I did laundry. I hung my laundry up to dry on a big creosote bush. I checked in this morning. I was surprised to find my jeans were dry. I was like, wow, jeans don't normally dry out overnight, especially when it's cold. Then I realized they were stiff. They weren't actually dry. They just didn't have any liquid water on them because they were frozen. But yeah, my pack thermometer said 28 Fahrenheit or about -2 Celsius. So a little below freezing, but not super cold. But cold enough my toes are a little chilly. Gotta get them warmed up. So yeah, got up at 4 a.m. this morning. Just to get an early start. I knew that, you know, taking down my laundry and refilling my water up to the top, since it takes me a little while, and I have a long stretch ahead of me. I have another 3-day stretch without water. Now, unlike the Death Valley stretch where I had to cover 60 miles, this time I only have to cover 41 miles. The problem is that there's about 2.7 kilometers of vertical elevation gain in that time. I have to cross parts of 4 mountain ranges and 3 valleys. I have to get out of the Panamint Range, or the Cottonwood Mountains, if you want to call them those. I have to cross Panamint Valley, and you climb onto the Darwin Plateau and cross the Santa Rosa Hills, and then cross a valley called Leaf Flat, go over Malpais Mesa and across a valley called Centennial Flat, and then up into the foothills of the Coso Range to get my next water. So you know, this journey is definitely not ending on an easy note. Looked up and it looks like the sun is now with us, lighting up the hilltops. And the sun just rose, so should start warming up soon. I'm almost to the base of this canyon. Again, I'll actually be taking the left fork here. Just making my way up this canyon now. So far, so good. Looks like some burrow didn't make it, I guess. We're approaching an unconformity again. So here, these boulders in the foreground are going to be, again, these gabbros, intrusive plutonic rocks. They're Jurassic in age, again, like 156 to 180 million years old, Hunter Mountain batholith. And up there you can see there's a red band. That's probably actually soil developed on top of it.
and then above that there's basalt. So actually the red soil is, it's hard to tell, it's hard to say if that's a paleo soil. Sometimes soils that have been weathering a long time turn red, like you see in Australia, or that could actually be a baked contact again, where the lavas above it have baked the soil developed on top of this granite into that red color. It's hard to tell from down here. Some nice joshua trees as we get up here closer to the pass. Okay, so we're finally coming up to the pass here. And there it is, Panamint Valley. And the sparkling light down there will be Panamint City. Yeah, so I'm actually heading down that next ridge out past that joshua tree there. So I'm just gonna contour around a little bit here. I think that one just looked like it was gonna be an easier ridge to go down. There's a odd little dense grove of joshua trees out there. Okay. Looks like a pretty good view from here. Looks like this ridge isn't gonna be too bad going down. Not as easy as yesterday, but not too bad. Hey, what can we see? So the big valley here is the Panamint Valley. The mountains on the left are the Panamint Range, and there's a big normal fault on the front of these mountains. It's lifting up the Panamint Mountains on this side, and so the whole Panamint Mountains are tilted back towards Death Valley. There's no fault on that side. They're lifted up on this side. That's an active fault. So the dunes here in the valley, those are the Panamint Dunes. I'll be crossing those today. On the other side, the plateau is the Darwin Plateau, and then there's a higher plateau in the distance to the right of the snowy mountain out there, and that's the Malpais Mesa. So tonight I'll be climbing up most of the way onto the Darwin Plateau in the mid-ground, and then by tomorrow night I should be up on top of Malpais Mesa. And then the night after that I'll be in the Coso Range, which is then the mountains off to the left of the snowy peaks on the distance. And then the night after that I should get to the base of that. So that's that tall snowy peak out there, that's standing, that looks the biggest from here, is a Lancha Peak, I'm pretty sure. And so I'll be meeting the Sierra Nevada near the base of that mountain. Will be the end point of my trip, 4 days from now. Less than 4 days from now. Near the town of Alancha. Okay, well, let's get down this thing. Oh, we can still see the Coso Range again. That's the one just to the left of the snowy mountains there in the distance. But I need to get there within 3 days or I run out of water. So, just to put some perspective in this all. Okay, now from the end of this point, I believe my plan is to drop down into this canyon over here on the right. So hopefully that's not too treacherous. Problem with slopes like this, well, other than rolling on rocks, is that they tend to get steeper as you go down often. And the worry is always you're end up on a slope like the one across the way where like it's got a steep slope and then it's got like a cliffy rocky part. You do not want to end up on one of those. Because if you look at this slope horizontally, you can see that it's actually quite a steep slope. Which you probably don't get quite the appreciation for that in the downhill looking perspective on the GoPro. This is definitely harder on the legs than my cakewalk down the mountain yesterday. Although maybe that's just because I'm carrying more weight, but I think it's actually that this is harder. The gravel's not as deep, so you have to be a lot more careful with your steps to not just have your feet slide out from underneath you. I feel like I should be wearing a dust mask doing this. I'm finally coming down to the bottom of this canyon, which looks like it should be a little bit easier going. Yeah, that's the reason it seems like I'm going down a long way. I'm losing about 2,800 feet of elevation, or over 800 meters. Definitely airless and stifling down in this canyon. Sorry, just legs and ankles getting really tired. I don't really have time to sit and take breaks every 10 minutes. So I really have to just keep pushing on, if at all possible. Because I still have to get up onto that plateau over there. Okay, now this canyon's getting a little bit more narrow and steep. Anyway, it's sort of a cool canyon. Okay, my canyon walls are finally shortening to the point I could theoretically get out of this canyon.
So I think I'm going to declare myself officially off the mountain and on the alluvial plain. Okay, so there are the dunes. I'm heading actually not towards the biggest dunes. Sorry to disappoint you guys. But south of those, there's sort of a reddish hill, and then there's a black hill with a little white spot on top. That's what I'm aiming for. Which will only take me across the lower part of the dunes, but I think that's okay with me. This sort of canyon really makes the whole alluvial plain experience much less pleasant. Here we go again. And that thing is deep. Bright idea wasn't to put these things here. This kind of t-shirt will be annoying in the best of temperature, but when it's like 85 in the shade and feels like it's 110. It looks like this canyon gets shallower up here. This might take the cake for the deepest, narrowest canyon I've come across. Okay, well, here's our third nasty 4-meter deep canyon. I think this one is this cross right here. Assuming these boulders are well and safely locked in place. It's kind of big assumption. Ow. There's a little one. It did not hit me that hard. Just a little ankle knocker. And I can go right back up a little bit. In fact, I think you can probably leap across this first part. This hand I want to use to stabilize myself with. Okay, there we go. I don't know if that was easier than going around, but this one I actually couldn't see in either direction. It looked like it was possible to cross. Also, there's 3 of those in the last 200 meters. Well, I had been dreading the sand dunes, and now I'm really looking forward to them. Sand will be a welcome change to nasty little canyons. This one at least I can see coming, and there's a side canyon that'll take me down into it. That is what I was trying to avoid by coming down here. Those walls are at least twice my height, probably 2.5 times. But I can get out down here, it looks like. Oh. Man, this one's a doozy. Well, I can see where to get up the other side. I'm less sure where to get down on this side. I think maybe up here might be a little better. Yeah, I think I can do this. Go undue danger to my person. Maybe. The problem with these things is they have these ball bearings all over them. Oh, this is the 5th nasty canyon now I've run into. Big burrow down there. Okay, well, after passing a short minefield of animal burrows, which often seem to like the margins of sandy areas, I'm now finally entering the Panamint Dunes. My other hiking across dunes experiences so far on this trip have been in cold, windy places. This is the first one where I really get the hot desert dune experience on this trip, at least. Huh. Okay, well, I see a nasty canyon coming up and only just got out of the sand. I was really hoping that this one would be full of sand. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Man. Don't even dare get any closer because I can tell the silver hot. I guess I can get down over here somewhere. Even these jets, military jets flying super low. I don't have it in 4K, so it can be hard to see, but there they go in the other direction. Okay, this one I think you can jump across. I don't know about the next one. Yeah, not so much. This one's not at least not as deep as other ones. Means I should be able to find an easier crossing sooner. Well, here's our next nasty canyon. Well, this one's not too bad because it's got broken down walls I can climb through. Reasonably convenient places. That one is not stable. Someone told us, but no major injuries. This time they're soaring quietly, directly overhead, slowly, tail to tail. Almost like a refueling operation or something. I didn't even know they could go that slowly after seeing them zoom by earlier. There's a third one that is not going slowly. Well, I'm starting getting up to the sweat dripping into my eyes level of hot. And the plus side of now reaching the base, at least, of the Darwin Plateau. Not the part I actually want to climb up. That's that next hill back there that's sort of eclipsed by this front hill. I was sort of walking up to the shortest line would have been to go across this ragged boulder field, but it looked from a distance there might be a little wash next to the base of the hill here that might have finer sand in it. So I was sort of trying to cut over to that a little sooner so I didn't have to walk more distance than necessary on the ragged boulder field. Well, this boulder field could be worse. Oh, so nice to try a little bit. I guess I could have more of these nasty canyons in it. That'd do the trick. No, unfortunately, I suspect now they're in basalt, so we're going to have boulder fields like this the whole rest of the way until we get off Malpais Mesa. Basically, so the Darwin Plateau and Malpais Mesa are both made of these roughly 5 million year old basalts. And basalt tends to unfortunately weather into these boulders like this. Okay, well I think we finally put the sun in its place for the day. Because I think by the time we get up this first ridge, probably the sun will be set behind the plateau behind it. Judging how low it was getting to it. Oh, and then just the question is how far will we make it up? If we don't make it as far as our planned camp, which I'm a little dubious of, given that, I don't know, there's like 600 meters of elevation gain to do that. Will there be other places I can camp comfortably partway up? Or will I have to nestle between boulders? Okay, let's climb this plateau. At least start climbing it. Nice big vesicles in these basalts. Vesicle is just the fancy word for bubbles. Whoa! Big steps. Whoa! Big steps for tired legs. Lots of this white stuff I think is caliche, which is soil carbonate. Probably from carbon dioxide in the air reacting with calcium and magnesium that leaches out of the basalt. Incidentally, people have talked about using basalt as a sort of natural source for carbon dioxide sequestration. Because basalt and other mafic and ultramafic rocks, that is, one's rich in magnesium and iron too, although that's less important for carbon sequestration. The magnesium in particular can bind to carbon dioxide and make magnesite, magnesium carbonate, which is probably a significant component of this white crud here. So people wondered, well, can you take the basalt or other even more magnesium-rich rocks like peridotite, and can you grind them up and react them with CO2, or can you just find a place that has these rocks and then drill a hole and inject the CO2 straight into the ground? And will it react? These are all questions people have been talking about. Of course, it's probably easier just not to make the CO2 in the first place, but all these sorts of what people call geoengineering solutions of getting rid of CO2 after it's already in the atmosphere tend to be difficult. For one, you need to capture the carbon dioxide in the first place, which is not necessarily trivial. Well, onwards and upwards. I feel like I'm speeding up a little bit now, now that the temperature is dropping. It's great. I still haven't seen anything resembling a remotely campable location. Too rocky for that. And even between the rocks, are these little spiny plants, the devil's spine flower, which are the bane of my existence. Well, I think that's probably the last sunlight we're going to see is the lit up telescope peak there in the Panamints. I said the sun was gone, but look, it's making an encore appearance in the Cottonwoods with especially orange hues. Guess it was just behind a cloud earlier. Still lights in the Cottonwoods there. Here they haven't only just come a few steps since I last had the camera on. I just had to adjust my pack. It always starts, especially on these heavy pack days when I have start with 16 liters of water. I'm almost down to 11 now, but especially on these heavy pack days, the pack is really eating in my hips by the end of the day. I have to adjust it every 5 to 10 minutes. Hard work for the end of a long day. At this point, if I find a space that's okay to camp, I'll camp there. I'm not going to be too picky. Okay, well, you probably can't see much more than the horizon, which I'll do a scan of, but I'm up here on this gentler part of the ridge, not far past where it became not that far past the flood. I found a nice patch of soil here, actually, that's big enough for a tent.
Just a little sunrise shot here, still getting camped together, but there's some nice colors here, so. Their sunrise update. Getting a real nice sunrise this morning. Okay, well, good morning. I guess you might have already seen some sunset pictures, but I'm finally leaving my camp here. We got some nice red lit up clouds and more or less the direction we're going. Anyway, it was a relatively warm night, although the wind has picked up, so there's a little bit of wind chill. The thermometer was reading 46 Fahrenheit, or I guess it's about 8 Celsius, so it's not super cold, which is good because I'm gaining almost another kilometer in altitude today. So yep, just continuing up Darwin Plateau, and then we got to cross the Santa Rosa Hills, Santa Rosa Flat, and then go up just over the top of the Malpais Mesa before camping is the plan. Darwin Plateau, incidentally, I believe is not named for Charles Darwin, but is named for Erasmus Darwin, a mining promoter in the area back in the 19th century. I don't know if they're related, although there can't be that many Darwins out there, I guess. We're starting to get the first rays of sunlight on the Cottonwood Mountains back there. We got light on the next plateau over, and I think it's coming for us too. Yeah, there's the sun peeking over. And there's my shadow. Down a ways from where I am, so you might have to squint to see it there, but it'll grow more distinct as we walk. So I believe my agenda for the morning is basically continue up towards that gap there. Now I can see I have to go around the head of Lee Canyon here, which sort of ends at a big dry waterfall. Well, looks like I'm coming up on the end of Lee Canyon up here. I'm not sure I can actually see the bottom. Not sure I can get close enough. I think maybe that's the bottom down there. Yeah, see, that's a deep canyon. It's got that little bright red gorge down there at the bottom. That's still a big, deep canyon. And it ends right there, so like I said, it must be an impressive waterfall when it goes. In an earlier version of this hike, I actually was planning to camp right at the head of the canyon, and I had fantasies about there being a rainstorm and getting to film the waterfall there, but it does not seem like it's going to be. Just as well. Actually, I've been startled just by how dry this entire trip has been. I haven't had, other than a few drops in my tent that one night in Death Valley, of all places, I haven't gotten a drop of precipitation. Okay, so we come around a corner here. We can now see the Santa Rosa Hills before us. And I think I'm heading for, I just looked at the map, I'm heading for the canyon that has its mouth right below the right-hand red peak there, or red hill. And that should take me through the hills without too much difficulty, I think. Finally gotten to the base of the Santa Rosa Hills. I'm just gonna head up this canyon. Big cliffs of basalt up there. But my route is easy. We're still heading up this canyon. Well, if this is our high point in the Santa Rosa, either way, it doesn't matter. Our elevation here is a little bit below 5,400 feet. We've actually been steadily gaining altitude all morning. So that actually puts us, I think, higher than all the passes we've done since the Granite Mountains 2 weeks ago. I know the pass at the top of the Pennants would be close. So for the rest of the day, we're going to cross. There's a flat up here, Santa Rosa Flat. We're going to cross that, and we're going to go up basically to the top of Malpais Mesa, and ideally slightly back down the other side before we camp, is the plan. And so we're actually going to beat our previous altitude record just as we start up Malpais Mesa. And we're going to just completely blow it away by the time we're at the top. Actually, we have a good view here. So the mesa right in front of us is Malpais Mesa. That's where I'm heading today. And then there's another mesa off to the right, which if you look closely, it's actually made of different types of rock. Malpais Mesa is the same approximately 5 million year old basalts mostly. The mesa to the right is actually made of sedimentary rocks from the late Paleozoic into the Triassic period. So that would be, you know, roughly 250 million year old rocks there. And that mesa is called Conglomerate Mesa, held up by conglomerate rock, which is a, you know, like a lot of these alluvial fan sediments we've been seeing, rounded pieces of rock bound together. And that mesa is the proposed site of a new massive open pit mine by a Canadian gold company, K2 Gold, I think, that wants to put in a massive open pit mine there. Now, I'm not anti-mining. As a geologist, you know, I know where metals and other resources come from. You know, don't tell me you're anti-mining if you use a laptop and drive a car, because if you use anything made of the metal, it's hard to be anti-mining. But that said, you know, some resources are more economically valuable than others, or, you know, gold, for example, which is what they're proposing to mine there. I mean, I guess it has some small aesthetic value, but the main reason for mining gold is to make a boatload of money. It doesn't really have it doesn't really add much to society in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's nice to have and all, but I'm not sure that it's worth putting in a giant open pit mine. And that mesa, it's sort of prime Joshua tree woodland habitat. It's just a little bit higher elevation than your average Joshua tree habitat, and so it's sort of thought of as one of these places where, when climate change kills all the Joshua trees at this elevation and lower elevations, they'll still be able to thrive up there. So it's you know, I'm not generally speaking against mining, but I probably wouldn't support this particular mining project. Anyway, so we're coming to stop at this last hill of the Santa Rosa Hills. Lots of great Joshua trees up here. I might just stop up here next to this big Joshua tree and have lunch. Yeah. We'll sit on this rock over here, not directly underneath it, so if any limbs break off in the wind, they won't fall on me. Because those might still fall on me. Well, they probably aren't going to break off right now. Okay, we're coming up on Sea Lion Valley Road. So this is going to be the end of Death Valley National Park for us. Well, according to GPS, we're now leaving Death Valley Wilderness. So now we have about a 1.5 mile wilderness gap in order to get to the corner of the Malpais Mesa Wilderness. So there's actually a few roads across here. We'll have to cross, that's just the biggest one. Okay, so I think this is our last road that we need to cross before we get back into the wilderness. Yeah, GPS says we're out now. So now we're into the Malpais Mesa Wilderness. Now we just need to get up onto the mesa. I think the plane I'm heading for is that way.
And I'm just gonna go up that gentle ridge. Last, we come to the base of Malpais Mesa. Well, so far it doesn't look too bad. It looks like a pretty easy walk up this hill. We haven't gotten to the steepest part yet. Somehow having all the Joshua trees on it makes it look nicer. I don't know, with a name like Malpais, I was expecting this to be pretty rugged, but well, we'll see what it's like when we get to the top. I shouldn't count my chickens before they've hatched. Okay, so we've come up to the top of that ridge, or close enough to the top. So now we're going to continue up this ridge straight in front of us, and then we're going to zig up that relatively steep ridge and then zag, and that's actually the highest we're going to go, is that big flat mesa up the top. Technically the peaks on the left and right are slightly higher, but if you define the mesa as being the flat part, which it should be by definition, being a table of sorts, then we're going to the highest part of the mesa. Definitely getting tired, getting a little headache. Well, it's that time of day when the slopes I'm climbing are going to be steeper than the angle of the sun. And these Joshua trees are going to look really nice in this light. Sort of cool the way just the tops of the trees are lit up. Ow, my feet hurt though. They get blisters on the very last day. I can probably just put a lot of antiseptic ointment on and bandage up my feet and walk on it anyway. But I have them today, that's a little more tricky. But every other time I thought I was getting blisters, it's just been generalized pain. Hopefully that's the case this time too. Probably false summit. The wind is starting to pick up a little bit, which makes it really cold, but does give me increased hope that we're getting close to the real summit. Big step there. To the top. I still need to get back down to the other side, ideally to a suitable place to camp. Ideally with firewood. There we go. High, well basically maybe a few feet high over there, basically the high elevation of my trip. 2,265 meters above sea level, or just shy of 7,450 feet. There's Alancha Peak. I should be at its base in just over 2 days. Actually, it's just about 2 days. Hopefully I don't get there too much later in the day than this. Okay, so there's the top, there's the Sierras. And I more or less did it by sunset. Now I just have to get down. Well, that's certainly the place to be at sunset for a nice view. Not sure if there's any other benefit to being here at sunset. It was kind of cold, but it's a nice view. So yeah, there's Mount Whitney with the jaggedy spines on the left, which although it looks shorter is just because it's further away. So that's Mount Whitney is actually the highest peak in the continental United States at like 14,450 feet or something like that. It's like 4,500 meters or so. Mount Langley, I think, to the left of that. Oh wow, we got some redder light on Telescope Peak now. I put on a sweater, sent a couple quick texts. Sunset is maybe a little more muted now. Now it's just a matter of trying to get down as far down this mountain as possible before it gets too dark. And hopefully finding a decent place to camp. Ideally with some sort of wood. And hopefully some shelter from the wind. So there's a spot that I was hoping to camp at, which is a ways down the mountain. I mean, the good news is it's all downhill. But, oh, that's actually one more thing I need to do with my phone, sorry. I need to quick download some satellite pictures off my phone so that I could find while I have internet up here, so I can find my way to camp in the dark if I have to. Probably have internet on the side, but you never know. Well, not such a bad land if you ask me. I really like Malpais Mesa actually. Although I'm sure it's going to get below freezing tonight. At least if I'm still most of the way up this mountain, which I'm pretty sure I am.